Daz,
And I literally...
sorry, Daz, would you mind if I brought in, if there's any other of our superstar artists like lurking around on Discord? Would it be okay if we brought some other people in? And because I think there's
By
so
all
much
means.
there's so much commonality, isn't there, between what you're doing, and everybody kind of, you get to a stage where you are talking the same language, and there's probably loads of examples that we can all share that where these underpinning sort of ideas and ways of working can cross over, across everybody's work. So
By...
Mooney, are you around, mate? Are you gonna pop in? I'm locked into this screen share at the minute. I can't see what's going on the rest of Discord.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're in.
Right, Moon's in. We got Amber. Can we hear Amber?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Yay.
We got Dave. Can we hear you, Dave? Little mic check.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
And Badge.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh my God! Everybody's in the house.
Yeah.
Hiya.
Hi, everyone.
How do, cockers?
Well, doing good, mate.
Come on, help me out here. I need to go for a wee.
Should we do some of the questions?
Have we got?
Yeah.
Have we got some?
We got a couple in the actual Discord, and I believe some people did mention.
Can somebody pick them out for me? Because
Yeah,
I'm scared of hitting anything and losing the stream here. I'm really sort of, when it's working, I want it to stay working.
Yeah, of course. Give me a
Do you want to be the?
Go have your wee, mate. We'll sort it out.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Do you want to be the question reader, Amber? I'm going to mute my mic because my daughter's come down and she decided to show up on the stream. So I'll be back in a sec.
Okay. Got two questions here. One for you, Badge.
Okay.
Since you are working with an established property with Warhammer, also applies to you LEGO artists here, what advice can you give to students who will go on to create concepts for intellectual properties that have a lot of history?
Okay. Yeah, you will have a lot of restrictions. I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
I know that companies are very precious about their IPs because they want to maintain them in the best, most positive light as they can. And so they will kind of want things done a certain way. I know there's probably some stuff over it on your side as well. On Sean's side now and Dave's side, which they have to deal with frequently. But it depends on who the IP holder is. I mean, again, for us in Games Workshop, the relationship's quite good, and there's been a lot of cases where they wouldn't normally let people design their own stuff from scratch. We've done it because a lot of those models didn't exist. And so they would give us just free reign. I think it was the Vampire Ghost DLC where we had free reign over a lot of the visual elements there, and that was pretty good. But I think it depends entirely on the IP holder.
I was going to say, Dave, like asking you that same question because I know back at TT we dealt with a lot.
Yeah, I mean Badger's covered it pretty well, but it's really interesting with Lego because there's IPs in IPs.
Yeah.
With, if we do like a Lego Star Wars or a Lego Batman or Lego Indiana Jones, there's multiple IP holders. I think the key with that stuff is, we have like a lot of dialogue back and forth with those guys about, it's their, like Badge said, it's their property and they want it to be shown in the best light possible and to stick to their rules. So, it's limiting, but it's also, it's really good. Having those constraints.
Awesome. I've got another question.
I'm back.
What is the thought process on taking a tabletop game and making it into a console game?
Oh, okay. For the visuals, it's how we can translate those proportions over first and foremost. We want to make sure that we retain a lot of the lore from the characters or lore-specific elements, or even general shape language. But ultimately, we are making a Total War game, and it is quite realistic and quite gritty to an extent. So we kind of have to make sure that it fits within our rules as well. So again, a lot of back and forth with things like art style. Generally, again, Games Workshop were quite good when it came to the art style, and we ultimately decided, in fact, I think it was before I started, because I didn't come onto the project until halfway through, they decided to go with kind of like a kind of stylized, kind of realistic style. I think yeah, again, it just depends on what art style you want to go with and what the IP will allow for. I mean, again, I'm not sure what it's like. Well, I guess what it's like with the Lego team, if there's something similar there where you're translating Lego over to a game element.
I think the Lego stuff, it's like it's at the heart of the games we do. It's like product placement in some ways. You get your cool little minifigs, and then you get to play those out in those games. Which tie often to like films and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Badger's kind of covered it all again.
Yeah. Darren, I've got a question for you here. Do you have any advice on how to loosen up your line work? I always find myself ending up with lines that look too clean and too stiff, even though it should just be a sketch.
The thing that worked for me, because I used to be in the same boat, was, and it sounds weird, but is to just treat it like you don't care. Which is kind of weird advice to give, but it worked for me. It forced me to stop thinking about it in terms of like, oh, how nice are all these lines, and to start to appreciate the overall a little more.
Do you have anything to add on that, Moon, as well? Like, 'cause I know with how you do your sketches and line work.
Pretty much what Darren said there. Like I remember learning to draw. I was very much influenced by certain comic artists. Guy did Akira, Katsuhiro Otomo, and his work's like immaculate, absolutely immaculate line work. And it was like a huge influence when I was like in college doing art and design. And I used to just draw with fine liners, 0.5 fine liners, and then I had a thicker one for doing shadow.
Yeah.
And I found, yeah, there you go. See, it all comes back to Akira with me. And then as I started to understand what concepts, when I understood what I actually liked about doing the drawing was like the designing part of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really do like to render stuff out as well. I do get a satisfaction in that. But then when I started to realize it is more about the design, and then started to loosen my stuff up, when I think I was in my second year at uni, we had a tutor called Josh, and he would essentially sit behind me and time me and say, "You've got 10 minutes to draw a full soldier character, go." And then he'd like sort of knock me on the head with a rolled up piece of paper as like the stopwatch. And that, not fear, I want to say, because it was all playful, but that kind of like pressure made me start, oh, quick, get it down quick, and be scratchy with it. And like as I've got older and older and done more and more, I've kind of realized, like, all right, this is the actual nub of what my job is. My art station doesn't really reflect that at the minute, which I'm hopefully going to be fixing in the new year. But like, I think I've mentioned a few times, there's a lot of the stuff I've done on the Lego Star Wars game, 90% of it is kind of what Darren's doing here. It's just really scribbly line work with the most basic washes in. And it's just enough that when the art director on that looks at it, he's like, perfect. We might need one finished version of this, so the 3D guys have got a reference point. But yeah, it was essentially learning about what my role is supposed to be that allowed me to go. People at work judging me, going, "This isn't the most prettiest drawing you can do," and it's like, well, yeah, because I'm a designer, and design is rough and sketchy, and people want to see you thinking on paper. So yeah. That's my approach to it.
Yeah, and I do the same thing with 3D. Like I designed that creature for Love, Death and Robots, and the final result was a sculpt, like as a final design. But there was like a month and a half of the roughest of sketches to get it to where I sculpted the thing. So yeah, keep everything rough until it doesn't need to be.
I've got one, I think, aimed to Badge here. Hey guys, I'm an aspiring character artist with the background of graphic design, but I can adapt to different art styles. What would be the best way to show off these skills? Whether I should make multiple portfolios and hope that potential employers will find those themselves, even if it's not relevant for my role?
No, if you want to be a character artist, make a character artist specific portfolio. I think this is something that people fall into the mistake of starting off in their career, is that they have too many bodies of different work and kind of show yourself as a bit of a jack of all trades. And in most companies, especially bigger ones, you're going to be doing a specific role. If you're in a smaller studio, like a more independent or even mobile studio where the team sizes are much smaller, you might take on other bodies of work, but I mean, you've said it yourself, you want to be a character artist, so focus on the character art side, and kind of try and get as good at that as possible, and then you can expand out later on. I don't think the multiple portfolios will matter. I mean, if I look at a character art portfolio when I'm hiring, I immediately go for the character art and disregard the rest, because that's what you'll be doing for most of your day. So I would say focus on that, and get yourself in some good Discord channels, and start learning and get some feedback as well, because that's super important.
Nice. I got a question for Sean. When you took the tank turret that looked too modern and made it look more futuristic, what did you change if you were to still be using the same references?
Well, I didn't. I actually went back and did a bit more ref digging. The stuff I had was just very, I want to say like Desert Storm 1 and 2-ish. So like early 90s, early 2000. And then I just words in the search and found some very, very cool, more modern looking, like, I think some of it was like essentially military concept design stuff. I found it on Pinterest, I think, and just thought, that's the way I want it to look. And then I was able to reverse image search on Google and find some, other shots of it. And it just looked, the angles in it, the panel detail and stuff, was like, that fits in more with what I'm thinking with the body.
Yeah.
Was the one that in the talk that I zoomed in was took straight off, I think it was an Abrams tank or something like that. Is it an Abrams, the American ones? And it just looked too like what we have now, and I wanted something more like, that's got a slight sci-fi angle to it. So it just meant it wasn't stuff that I actually had in front of me. I just had to go back and do a little bit more research on that particular bit. So yeah.
Awesome. I've got a question here that I'm going to ask all the artists here, because I think it's quite relevant, especially to students. So depending on who wants to answer first, you guys decide. With hindsight, what is the one piece of advice you would give to yourself just after you graduated?
I'll have to think about that one.
Me, I graduated in 2001, and I didn't get a job until 2006.
Yeah. I think this one's probably...
Prepare yourself for a bit of... It's not going to happen instantly. If it does, that's great. But there's not many people I know who had a super, smooth journey. Like, straight out of uni, straight in the games. Because it's so competitive.
I think the mentality on that's changed. Not for us. I think again we started off before social media kind of hit a peak, and I think now people on social media are seeing other people succeed super early and asking themselves why aren't they doing the same. Whereas before we didn't really have that awareness. And Darren pretty much hit the nail on the head. Is that, I mean, it took me 2 or 3 years after I finished uni, and I didn't even want to be an artist after I finished uni. Well, I chose to be an artist after I finished uni because I hated what I did at uni. So like, it does take time and it takes effort, and even if you have to do a job on the side to compensate and just get good at your art in your spare time, do it, because it's worth it. I think you've got to think of it as a hobby and a passion first, and then as a job second. And if you're only thinking of it as a job, you've got to question yourself, why do you really want to do it if that's your primary focus?
I'm really struggling to think of something, because of I remember when I first got in industry, I was like super excited. I remember when I got the job, I was literally jumping around the room with a friend of mine. We both got a job at the same time. We got hired at the same time, and then when I got in after a few years, I was a little bit disheartened because I wasn't doing exactly what I wanted to do. But over the past 5 to 6 years, I've kind of realised how incredibly lucky I've been to do some of the stuff I've done, and I never look back thinking, I wish I would have done that and that, because I'm really happy with everything I've got. It's just a blessing anyway. So I'm just at the minute just not looking back at anything thinking I wish I would have done this and this, because everything I've done's got me where I am, and I'm not, I'm not rich, I'm not like a superstar mega famous artist, but I'm just really happy with what I've got. So I don't know, I can't imagine going back and saying anything to myself like, you should have done this or that. Maybe stop drinking a bit earlier. I remember at uni, like, me and Dave were drinking we hit the uni life hard, and then it carried on for a good few years into the industry
enjoyed
stuff.
that life. Yeah.
But then I remember one day, I think I was 27. I was like, I'm going to stop drinking like that now. So maybe
wish I'd drunk more at uni. To be honest, I don't think I drunk enough.
Yeah, like I didn't start drinking till I left uni. So
Yeah.
Can I just say to folks that if you are under 18 in the UK,
yeah.
please don't
answering the question.
don't start drinking.
Don't think I'd change anything, because if I changed something, I think I wouldn't have got to where I am now if I'd have changed any way that I'd acted straight at uni.
I think like in regards to me, I kind of wonder where I'd be right now if I did become like I did focus all my studying on 3D like concept art. So I've always got that, not like a regret, but it's that wonder of could I have achieved what I want to achieve? But now that I'm older and I've got the time to go out and learn it, it's not just because I've hit an age I'm never going to be able to go and do it. With practice and learning, I could do it. I think like it's not going to stop or hold me back. So
I think that's really important, Amber. It's like whatever age you are, don't think that I don't know what you've got. You've probably got a few more years than you think, and it's not too late to start. I mean, I'm as old as God's dog these days, and it's like I'm still thinking, oh, should I start learning how to program?
Yeah, like if you're passionate about something, just
well, I'm
give
not,
all your time into it.
I sometimes need a bit of script or a bit of code. I think, I know that would be great if I could, just get someone to script that for me. And Dave, you do a bit of scripting, don't you? And stuff. You're a bit of a...
Yeah, I guess if I spoke to my much younger self, it was so I guess it was patience. I put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And if I could, I'd do everything, but it's just not possible at the time. So you end up feeling like you're falling behind in so many aspects of it. If it's game scripting or you're scripting some stuff for Maya or you're doing environment art or props or specifically lighting or anything. There's so many aspects now. You really got to just specialize in a few things. Yeah, because it was kind of cool when Sean started out at a small company. You got to do a lot of things, a lot of exposure. But looking back now, I put so much pressure on myself. It was almost too much. Like it was probably stopping myself from being a bit more relaxed and being a bit more creative, I think.
I've seen that a lot in the Discord as well, where students are kind of just seem to be putting a horrible amount of pressure on themselves to be doing projects and doing this and getting everything done for their course, which is quite sad to see because, like you said yourself, if you knew back then what you knew now, you wouldn't have put that amount of pressure on yourself and just, breathe.
I think you're right. It's dangerous. It can be crushing. You put such pressure on yourself and you're not achieving, and you're like, well, why? You're beating yourself up about it.
I think frustration is something that for those people listening to try and don't beat yourself up. And when I left college, I didn't get in. I was doing conventional illustration, but I really wanted to get into games. And I started looking at this time it was a whole different level. It was all it was pixel art, and so in some ways it was kind of easier, in some ways than it is now. And I was it touches on what we were just saying a minute ago. I was really, really frustrated. I kind of had this thing where I kind of felt like I was doing my portfolio had work that was better than some of the artists that had broke in before me, and I was going, why am I not getting my break? Because I know that my work stands up with shoulder to shoulder with these other people. Try not to do that to yourself, folks, because you'll drive yourself absolutely crazy. Just try and enjoy what you do, and understand that it might take a little bit longer, but as long as you're doing it, it's like the lottery ticket, you bought it. You've got to be in to win, and you've got to be doing some stuff. Try and enjoy it as a hobby, because you know what, if you're not careful, that when it becomes a job and you are under some crunch pressure or whatever, then all of a sudden, the joy gets sucked out of it a little bit. You've got to be careful. So try and stay a little bit chilled about it, accept the fact that you might have to go and do a bit of order picking down your local warehouse or something, but go home and then enjoy yourself. Keep working and keep getting now you can get your work out there. Everyone can see your work.
Yeah.
You don't have to put it in an envelope and post it by snail mail.
Just having that patience with yourself and learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's easier said than done sometimes as well.
Yeah.
I think if I had, like you said, if the age thing shouldn't matter. I mean, we hired our last trainee character artist, and she's older than me, and we hired her as a trainee, and she's going to be a senior next year. Like, it really doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you're passionate about it and really want to do it and have the enthusiasm for it. But I definitely agree on the pressure thing, because I mean, when I worked at Jagex and I was just working on my portfolio to kind of bring up my skills to like current generation standards, I put myself under so much pressure, and that's probably the one thing I regret, was just constantly stressed out, constantly high strung, just going home every night, just working till like 2 a.m. And the burnout does get you, especially when age creeps in, because it wears you down. It definitely wears you down. I can't do the same hours I used to be able to. But yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine was 40 when he made the switch. He was a banker before that. Shout out to Chris if he's watching from Crytek.
Is that
Chris Goodswood? Yeah, he's awesome.
Yep.
Tin Cow on Twitter. Yeah, he got into the industry late.
I mean, it's never late, is it? That's the thing.
No,
it's never too late.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
I think that's another thing I'm. It's really encouraging to hear what you're saying, Badge, because I think I might need a job soon.
Are you coming back, Baz?
Join us.
I think about it. You know, it's I've kind of.
I want to see some of this pixel art.
I got well. The pixel kind of the thing is, I don't know if I want to do pixel art anymore. I mean, I did so much of the stuff, like 35, 40 games, and you know, you're saying about the things that you've got like the complete production line kind of thing, and you're like a cog in the machine. Back in the day, I did everything. You know, I did the design and the UI and the characters, and you know, the animation and the backgrounds. You know. And it was everything. He even did sound effects and stuff, you know, because I've got a kind of bit of a musical background. So, I don't know. I kind of started out drawing like Daz's drawing here on paper, and then it went to pixels, and then it kind of went to 3D, and I kind of feel like I want to go back to doing, you know, to playing with this kind of stuff. There's a lot of joy in it, isn't it? When you've got good ideas. I think the having good design sensibilities and having kind of crazy ideas, there's a lot to be said for that. And if you can get that down and get paid to do that as well, it's like that's my dream. You know, so you're not bogged down in the workflow. Badge, what do you think about the? You know, I've been giving. I mean, it's changing all the time. You know. I've given advice to students that when we first, you know, validated the course, it was like we were getting feedback from industry saying, you know what, we don't want sort of generalists and designers, you know, coming up with treatment documents and where the trigger points are for monsters. We want people who can hit the ground running and, you know, do asset creation, and that's who we want to start as a junior. How do you go about, like, do you take on juniors who, you know, in that kind of concepting, design, like the kind of stuff that you're doing, but at a junior level? What is the sort of junior entry skill set you think that you're looking for at the moment?
It depends. So speaking specifically for our place, it's very competitive.
Yeah.
From depending on which company you go to and what the pipeline's like and what the bar is expected to be hit.
Yeah.
It's entirely dependent on their pipelines as well. So I don't want to speak for everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
But for us, it's pretty good. Like the last bunch that we've hired are just absolutely amazing. But I think that one of the things that people worry about and I think it's a bit of a falsity, is the number of competition and how many people are applying. Because we get probably for a trainee character artist about 400 applicants, 500 applicants a year.
Yeah.
But out of all of them, there will probably be only 3 of them who we would even consider.
Right. Okay.
And people look at the numbers, and it's like, it's not the numbers. Don't even look at how many people are out there doing the same thing. It's the quality, and it's a quality bar, and you've got to make sure that you hit that based on your own skill set leveling up, as opposed to comparing yourself against everyone else. And some good ways of doing that are just make your art interesting and stand out, because that's definitely going to help. because all too often you see a lot of work come in which have been student projects or uni projects which have a very similar brief, and so you can tell immediately where they're from and what that brief's been given. It's like, no, you've got to do some work off your own back, and you've got to develop in your spare time and do interesting work that stands out. Obviously, it's got to be good quality work, but if it stands out from the rest of the crowd, it's going to make your portfolio stand out and make you stand out on that initial impression. But yeah, it's not something people should be worried about. I think it's something that people should aspire to, is getting that quality bar as high as they can right from the beginning. And obviously, a trainee role, there will be an element of training. But at our place, I think when Naomi started, she was given like a massive creature as her first job straight away, just to see how well she did it. It's like we don't necessarily ease people in. Sometimes we do just throw people in the deep end just to see what they're capable of. And they'll get whatever support and help they need. But we don't want to coddle people, I guess. It's like we have an expectation for them to jump in and be able to do stuff straight away.
I think that's kind of what I was getting at there. That was the advice we were getting, even going back quite a few years, is that you have got to have a baseline of ability so you can kind of hit the ground running. Because studios are very, very busy and very time pressured, aren't they? And you can't literally, there is an expectation that you come out of uni and you do have a baseline of ability and a certain skill set. Because you haven't got time, have you, Badge, to teach someone how to use 3ds Max or Maya?
No, that's again, someone should come in with that knowledge of those tool sets.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, if someone comes in knowing Maya and we use Max, that's fine. Like, when it's a knowledge of modeling that I'm more interested in, not the tool set itself, because the tool set can be easily learnt. The actual modeling knowledge and topology and art knowledge behind it is the thing that takes the time, and that can't just be taught to someone. That's something that people have got to be willing to put the time into to learn in their own time. But again, this is very dependent on different studios. So again, I don't want to speak for everyone.
My first industry job, we had to we learned Max, and then we switched. It was like, you're going to be using Maya here, and it basically, they said, you take about 2 weeks, because all you're doing is essentially learning where the buttons are that do the thing that it's the theory behind extruding, verts and stuff. And in 2 weeks, I just basically picked up the basics of, right, that's how you extrude, that's how you do this and that. And then I didn't know it all, but I knew enough to start. I think I made like a little AK-74U like everyone does when they're doing 3D in about 2 weeks. And it wasn't the best model, but it was like, right, I know where all them buttons from Max, that's where they are on this program. Yeah.
That was the exact same for me when I started at TT. Dave was the art director on that project, and I think he gave me about a week and a half just to quickly learn Maya from being like all in on 3ds Max. So it takes time, but it's not a completely like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing sort of thing.
It's getting better, isn't it? Because there was a time where if you were using Maya in the studio, there was weird anomalies when you were transferring data from Max to Maya. There'd be weird things that in shading and stuff that wasn't compatible, and your internal tools and your scripts and stuff would have got to kind of fit in and stuff. But these days, I think the interoperability of software is so good. I mean, a lot of it's probably down to FBX. I mean, there's you want to just do whatever shows your levels of creativity and ability. And don't stress too much on what the buttons do. Just I think I could imagine. I have students who say, "Oh, I can't do this," and I'll put a lot of weight on underpinning design and drawing. And if somebody gives me work in a sketchbook, you can tell if someone's got it in a sketchbook, or it's a Photoshop file. I don't care if it's been done in Photoshop or Clip Studio or. I used to have them battles years ago. People would say, I need you to give me this, a Photoshop file. And I was like, well, I'd say, well...
You can tell if someone's got it when it comes to design-wise stuff. Scribbles in a...
Yeah.
I think that's a really important point about the software. And I think it's a general attitude, isn't it? Willing to adapt, because it's always going to change. I've been around long enough that I've been through enough now. There was no Substance Painter when I started out. We were texturing in Photoshop. That's come along, Substance Designer. You look at the way engines are now and the way you generate shaders for your environment artwork, for example, it's all node based.
Yeah.
That's quite a new thing. Yeah, engines will always change. So I think it's almost like an attitude or an outlook that you're kind of willing to adapt.
Yeah.
It's never going to change. I think it's always going to be there.
Seen a question here. It's addressed to me, but other people can jump in as well. It says, a lot of my portfolio feedback is positive, but not fitting the style of the project. How should you show you can adapt to any style as a concept artist? So I'm guessing that's in relation to my talks. I try to show the two very distinct different styles. The answer to that is you have to fail at trying to do the other stuff for a long time until you're not failing. There's no real quick solution to that. I had a very set style as when I was a late teen, early 20s, and then even throughout my university work. And when I got in the industry, we went straight to doing the first big game we worked on was the handheld version of Star Wars: The Complete Saga, and it was like, this is nothing like the artwork I do. And that was the beginning of that. And it took me a good few years to, I think, get really good at doing it. And then in terms of my 2D stuff, I just started to get really curious about. I'd look at other people's work that was nothing like mine and think, oh, I might try something like that. And I would try it, and then it would be rubbish. And I'd try it, and it'd be rubbish. But every time it would get just a little bit less rubbish. And then when I got to the point where I thought, I think I'm kind of understanding this style, I'd then see something else and go, I want to have a little pop at that, a little do at this. And you just have to, it's like, how you learn to swim. You jump in water and thrash around until you start moving and staying afloat. There's really no shortcuts to it. You've just got to dive in and just play around. Just have fun with it, though. Like, if it's stressing you out, like, just step away from it for a bit. But, yeah.
I think... It's a tough one, especially with 3D, because of the turnaround time as well. So making characters in your spare time in 3D can take months rather than days or weeks of doing a concept. And at that point, I don't know how you feel about it, Sean, but it's about catering your portfolio to a company that you want to work for, or a style of game that you want to work for. So if you want to work on a Warcraft style game or a Total War style game, you build your portfolio around that style. Obviously, don't emulate one-to-one what they're doing. Make your work different and interesting, but try and reach their quality bar so you could just slide into that team fairly easily. Because if you're making Warcraft style assets for your portfolio, but then you're applying to a company that makes a World War I first-person shooter, for example, part of me would be asking why you're applying to this company specifically, because it doesn't seem like something you're passionate about anyway, because it's not reflected in the style of your work.
Yeah. What else have we got? Questions?
I'm looking at a few about this idea of like the pressure people are putting themselves under, because there's kind of this people are really, I don't know if this is something that comes from like admissions tutors at unis or whatever, but I think you've got to be really realistic that it's like there's some people are selling this idea that if you complete your degree that you're ready to go, and that's usually not the case, and then you feel like you're kind of failing because you've not broke in straight away, and you're not earning money from it, and I think everyone, just please everybody, just don't beat yourself up about it. It's an incredibly competitive industry to get in, and try put the job thing to one side. If you the dream of making money from doing art, it really is quite dreamy. It's like you go to uni. To me that it's a funny analogy, but I kind of have this music kind of thing going on. I'm kind of got a musical background as well. It's like joining the X Factor. You're good enough. You're good enough to get on. The X Factor, and you might make it. Onto the TV, unless you're one of those comedy people who they just put on to wind. Just so they can wind them up. You've got to be in to win. If you dream of doing it, then do it, but be prepared to still have your part-time job in the short term. Enjoy what you're doing, but don't think that you're a failure if you don't make it straight away. You've got to follow your dream, because what you're going to do otherwise, if you're not edging your bets, with you've got your fairly mundane job or whatever. Try and enjoy your mundane job as well. Really make a game out of that order picking. Listen to your Walkman or whatever. Oh, do we have Walkmans anymore? Oh,
Walkman.
It was that Guardians of the Galaxy thing.
Your mini disc player.
Mini CDs.
Mini disc
I
player.
think-
Yeah.
One
Don't know
thing,
what DVDs are.
one thing that's really different now to when I guess all us got jobs is the opportunity for people to make money off their own artwork, not being hired by a large company now is.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity, like if you just come up with something that's really good and people like it, you don't need a company, a huge big company behind you to make a living off it. Like, because the difference between, I'm assuming most people here just want to make a living off it, which is different to making serious money off it. Like, I'm 38 now, and I'm only getting to the point where my work where I'm starting to think like I've got a few things there that I could make, like kind of like what Darren's doing here with Tribal. Is I'm looking at it going, I've got some artwork here where there's an idea behind this, and this could be a book, it could be a sketchbook, it could be a comic, it could be a series of illustrations, and I'm just thinking on ways like how can I get a bit of pocket money off the back of this sort of thing. I mean, if you really want to work in a studio, then that's what you work towards. But it's not, there's a lot more ways now to make money off your art. Like to me, when I left uni, it was I was either going to do comics, get a job in games, or go back to window cleaning. They were my three sort of things I was thinking. But if I was coming out now, it'd be wide open. I'd be almost spoilt for choice with. Well, I could apply here. I could start doing this and put this online. I could do, if I get enough followers, I could, you know what I mean?
It's super important that, Sean. Everybody needs to get this sort of entrepreneurial kind of vibe. You want to start thinking about that. If you've got some great designs and you've got like a universe, collections of stuff. Don't do one thing, because that's just might be a fluke. Don't do two things. You got lucky. Do three or more things. Do collections of stuff. Invent universes like Daz is doing here. How could your ideas be developed into a game? How many characters can you design that look sort of similar and fit into that universe, and put it out there. If it's unique, just put it out. Just keep posting it, and then you'll get followers. And then the next minute, you might be in a position where you can kickstart it. We were going to have Rob, weren't we, Sean? Unfortunately, Rob couldn't make it, and we were really excited because Rob would have covered that aspect. So it's really important that you mention that, Sean, because Rob was going to say, "Hey, I just like drawing these things, and people like them." And then I said, "Hey, what about if I made a book for you? We donate a few quid, and the next minute it's happening, isn't it?" So that's a really good point, that, Sean.
I'm sure a few people in the stream watching, like I'm kind of thinking that with my little dinky tanks, like that's the first thing I've done that's my own work that's really sort of took off in terms of people really seem to gravitate towards that. So I'm thinking, well, there's something in this. So I'm pursuing ways like, well, what can I do with this? Like I need to capitalize on this. It could be just a book of sketches of that universe. It could be a game. It could be toys, it could be just anything. Just as soon as
that exciting, as soon as
totally, like I'm really, I think once this COVID thing's open and I can get back with some friends who printers, I'm definitely going to be printing some more bits and bobs.
That whole idea of getting your 3D to be physically and manifest in front of you on the desk and be able to hold it is just amazing, isn't it? And I think who's your mate who was doing the sculpting for you when you was over at Clever Beans?
Lance.
Lance. God, it's meant. I think I've got. I'm getting outside or something. Yeah, Lance is doing that, isn't he? And he's putting sculpts out, and people can. Are they downloading his stuff so they can print them out and create like collections?
Yeah. So is it STL files? Are they called? He sells his STL files.
Yeah. So get entrepreneurial, folks. If you like doing little sculptures and stuff, you like making stuff, learn how to output it to a printer if you're not doing it already, and don't and in the short term, don't go and spend hundreds and hundreds of quid on fancy printers. Go and build yourself one from get yourself a 150 quid printer and just build some stuff and play with it and re-energize yourself. Sean brought some over to the real physical Imagine show last year.
Go and sort this cat out.
Yeah.
Go on, sort that cat out.
Go for it.
You had brought your 3D printed stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, drop ship and the little tank on legs.
Yes, think about toys, folks. If you're doing 3D, you've got potential toys there. Think about how the bits articulate and join together, and think about how you can print jointed objects and all that kind of stuff. There's so much fun you can have with all that.
I've got a question for all the art directors here. I've just thought now. In regards to when you're hiring for the entry level positions, do you look at the portfolios of those applicants and kind of see their potential? Like, what do you look for when you're seeing that, considering their skill level ability at the time?
Go on, Dave, you go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely look at their portfolios. That's the first thing. I think out of everything that gets submitted along with the CV, you look at the portfolio first. I think, yeah, you keep in mind when you're viewing that portfolio, you're hiring them for a junior position. But even at a junior level or a graduate level out of university, you can see that, that spark and that creativity. That will come through even if, not sort of the artwork isn't executed to a really high level, but that's okay. That's in line with the expectation that you're hiring a junior artist. But you can see, the fundamentals of shape, color, color theory, and how they're compositing the image, and especially if there's breakdowns and stuff in there, you can read that potential in a portfolio for sure. What do you think, Badge?
Yeah, aptitude definitely. You should have a number of portfolio pieces in your portfolio, and if you're starting off, that progression jump's going to be fairly huge as you go from piece to piece. And seeing that progression in those pieces and seeing that aptitude of your ability just kind of getting better and better and better with each piece, I'm looking at that and going, okay, this person's just going to keep going, or at least they've got quite a lot of mileage in there before they start to maybe need to deviate or maybe need an additional push. So that's one of the things I look at. Obviously, interesting pieces, as I said. Style, I think you kind of touched upon that with one of your answers about doing similar work to what projects they have. So, for example, doing Warhammer characters, absolutely. I'd say maybe don't do a character that we've already done. Maybe try and find another character that's not been done, and then that way you can put your own kind of spin on them. But aptitude and those initial pieces as well, just showing promise. I think that's definitely a big thing. But it's not all portfolio, because then you've got the interview.
Yep.
And I've seen some really good portfolios that if let's say I've had 5 character artists, and all of them had amazing portfolios, the interview stage would have filtered them down. I might have got rid of the top 2 and gone for the third one because the personality and communication skills were there, which weren't present with the top 2, and that's happened. So yeah, definitely a big thing to consider.
That was a shocker for a lot of people, I reckon, in your talk, Badge, when you said that you said you use this figure, mate. I'm going to throw it back at you. 50% is that communication thing. Yeah, you've got to.
Yep.
Me and Mooney talk about that thing. That one, I'm not going to say it. All that Mooney can say is that don't be an idiot.
You're allowed to say it. We literally say this in our company meetings. Don't be a dick. It's fine. You're allowed to say it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things is you've got to be able to get on with people, aren't you?
Yeah.
You've got to be a nice person. You've got to be fun to be around. And if you're up against it and you're with a team and you're all sort of suffering a bit and you are in a bit of crunch, you've all got to be like looking after each other and pick each other up and have a bit of a laugh and a joke. And
you can still be like introvert.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be it's not about being the most fun member of the team or being the most outgoing member of the team. It's about being able to communicate what you need to communicate and take in communication from other members from different disciplines so you can work collaboratively. That's the big thing. Like, I don't care if you don't go to the pub on a Friday. That's entirely up to you. You can go home, read, whatever. But like when you're at work, you're going to be spending a lot of time with a lot of different disciplines. And if you're just going to put your headphones on and get on with it, sure, you might be able to make great art, but you're not just an artist, and that's the thing I like to get across is you're a game developer first,
Yeah.
which means right down to things like knowing where to put files and naming conventions, which is my biggest pet peeve and really annoys me. It's like I've got some artists who make some amazing art, but when it comes to actually plugging that art in, it gets messy, and I get very, very angry. Because it's like that shouldn't be that messy, because they don't communicate where they don't ask people where it should go. They just assume and just throw it anywhere, and it's little things like that.
When I was I was like a contractor for years and years. I didn't ever work sort of cards in, as we call it, at a studio, because I was just too doggedly sort of entrepreneurial, and I was trying to do things myself. I wanted to have clients, not employers, But when it got to the stage where I was doing well and I was employing, subcontractors, people I were bringing in on big projects to help me, that thing, you don't have to be like, the clown. You don't have to be extroverted and, the life and soul of the party. What you've got to do is be sort of kind of responsive to the people around you, and maybe reading people is like more important than entertaining them. If you can read them, you think, oh, they're struggling with that. And there's nothing more beautiful when you're a bit stressed out than someone drops you something that really helps you out. You say, oh, I can see you're having a bit of a problem with that. What do you think of this? Or somebody will just post you a file that just pulls you out of a hole, because people are actually on your team, and they're being responsive to the needs of the project, and being responsive to if you're having a little meltdown, that they can pick up the ball. Yeah, pick up the ball sometimes when you've lost it. Absolutely, super important.
Baz?
Yeah, it's getting that time, isn't it?
I've got to go because my children need feeding.
I'm in a similar situation, mate.
I'm not. If Daz, what you're doing there is amazing. If you want to stay going, feel free to. But I was going to say, just before I go, I'm going to post a link to the Discord now.
Yeah.
Tonight, as a little wind down after doing the talk, I think a couple of us are going to just be in the general streaming thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a few Baileys, and I'm going to stream some drawing. I think Badge might do the same. Maybe Dave and Amber and Daz might join us. We don't know. But yeah, so I've got to go. But thanks for coming, watching the talk, everyone. And thanks to all the speakers. All your talks were amazing. And if you're around later, we can all hang out.